So you want to join the Army. Well, the PT test changed. So let's talk about that. What's going on, TMI Fitness Nation? Welcome back. You know who it is. Coach Kareem, back at it again with another TMI Fitness Podcast, episode 4. So you want to join the Army? Okay. Well, this episode is how to prep for the new Army PT test. Because things changed. So what's going on, y'all? Welcome back. For those of you who don't know me, and welcome new guys and new gals. I'm Coach Kareem, up-and-coming strength and conditioning coach with a bachelor's in exercise physiology and a current grad student studying performance enhancement and injury prevention. So with that said, I don't know anything. I'm just a young man trying to make it. But yeah, so we just talk about different topics, and this week's topic is the one I mentioned. You want to join the Army? Things change, so hey, let's see how to get you the right training program, and we'll talk about the new things that they're actually doing with the new training styles and what it's called and all that stuff. But first thing I want to do is start off with the quote of the week. Quote of the week this week is: treat your body as if you were going to need it for the next 70 years. That's actually a quote from a book that I just finished reading last month called 30 Lessons of Living, Tried and True Advice from the Wisest Americans by Dr. Carl Pellimer. Yeah, really good book. I don't want to get too much into that, but it's essentially a book of just collected information from different, elderly people like 70, 80 and up. And it's just good life advice for younger generations to just, heed and take their perspective. And, that way you just can avoid the pitfalls that they might have went through by just using real world life experience. So I thought it was really cool. And that was one of the quotes in there about just taking care of your body. Your body's your temple. So, how would you treat something that you're going to need for the next 70 years? Like, imagine if you had a car. You're going to just beat it up and destroy it while it's fresh off the lot? Well, if you do, it's not going to last you 20 years or 70 years. So pretty much think of your body as that car. You got to keep it in tip-top shape for as long as you can, because you're going to need it a long time, hypothetically, So treat your body as if you were going to need it for the next 70 years. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to this week's topic. Oh boy. So the Army. Oh man. For those of you who don't know, yes, I was actually in the Army myself. I did about three and a half years, almost 4 years. And it was good times, learned a lot. That's what actually, you go in, you serve your country and, for selfless reasons, and then get your selfish reasons. Well, I did, give you ability to go to school again for free. So I don't know if that's really selfish, but it's pretty smart, GI Bill and whatnot. But the Army PT test when I was in, it was pretty simple. I wasn't the best at the running portion of it because I've never been a distance runner, and it comprised of, let me just explain what it was. The Army PT test was known as the PFT. Okay, so that's actually still the current PT test going on right now in the Army, physical fitness test. It comprised of 3 events. The 3 events are the 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, and a 2-mile run, and that's pretty much it. In fact, that is it. That's the whole thing. And then it's scaled based on your age and based on the different age and gender also. And then based on where you end up in that particular age range and scale, it determines your score, whether you pass or fail. It really depends on your particular age range and bracket, things like that. So it wasn't an overly complicated test, but for someone like me who wasn't, a distance runner, because 2 miles to me was distance, I was more of a sprinter. What I had to do to prepare was more like a combination training of like fartlek training with long distance running, also with lifting. So for those of you who don't know, fartlek training is basically just like varied pace running essentially. And it worked better for me because since I had a sprinting background, it allowed me to actually get that last 100 yards of the run into a full sprint, which worked for me. Kind of helped me pace myself, keep a steady state, like, moderate pace cardio the whole time. And then once I get to that last 100 meters, that was like sprinter mode. So it allowed me to really give it my all. So an example of that kind of program would be a split that I did in which Monday, Wednesday, Friday would be lifting. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday would be runs. Tuesday would be like my intermediate kind of run. So the fartlek training would comprise of like 2 minutes on and then 1 minute of like just walking, 2 minutes of moderate running again, 1 minute of walking. So that'd be your Monday workout. Your Wednesday workout would be like legitimate sprints or distance run, depending on like the lift I did the day before. So the distance run would just be that. It'd just be distance. I just do 2 miles or even 3 miles to actually just get past the point, like the amount of effort that I needed to actually expel on a PT test, because it was only 2 miles. So if you could run 3 pretty easy, 2 was a joke. And then on Saturday, since it was usually, just nice out for the most part, wherever I was stationed, I did sprints. While I was actually training for the Army, it was beneficial because I was still at home and there was hills all over the area. So I actually did hill sprints, which made me have just like better overall turnover. That essentially, like the process of doing hill sprints, the science behind it is it's called overspeed training. So that's how I trained for that PT test. And that's how I'd recommend you train for the PT test that's currently installed right now, the Army PFT, physical fitness test. Now, like I said, things are changing. In October of 2020, the Army is switching to what's known as the ACFT, which is the Army Combat Fitness Test. And they've been doing testing on it just to see if it actually worked and if it is better for soldiers to do, because the actual events are more applicable to actual combat situations. Because honestly, if you're ever in a situation in the battlefield, you're running 2 miles, your leadership is severely failed you. So I think that's why a lot of people never really like doing it. But the way that they're changing it now is it's actually a combination of 6 events. Based on military.com, they say that the 6 events are a test that measure one's muscular strength, muscular endurance, power, flexibility, coordination, speed, agility, cardiovascular endurance, balance, and reaction time. So these are a lot of the things that you see actually trained in true thoroughbred athletes. Like the Nike Spark IQ test, they have speed, quickness, reaction, agility, reaction time, and agility. And that all adds to Spark. So power also. Speed, power, agility, reaction time, and quickness. The Nike Spark test. So a lot of those things are now being seen in the Army Combat Fitness Test, which makes sense. They hadn't changed their fitness test in easily like 40 years or so. So I think fitness has changed a little bit. So it's nice to see that they're actually moving to something that's a little more applicable to essentially what they are, is athletes. Like, depending on your job, you're going to be doing a little bit different of a thing. There's more combat intensive roles and there's more computer based roles. But at the end of the day, if you're a soldier, you're a soldier. That's why we all got to qualify to shoot. And, if something pops off, worst case scenario, cooks need to have to shoot somebody too. So everybody gets trained on the Army standard. And I do think, based on what I've read, that I'm not sure where it stands on this now. It might change. Based on what I've read, it says that you're only going to have to test on certain events based on like what you would actually be needed to do based on your MOS or job title, essentially. So a cook, they never get put in a situation in which they would necessarily need to, I don't know, maybe do like a strength deadlift, but somebody who is infantry might need to actually go through the motion of, standing up and carrying like a significant amount of weight from a dead lift, essentially. So, but I don't know. That's just what I read. I'm not sure where that stands now. But let's get into the events of the new Army Combat Fitness Test, and then I'll just touch on like what I would do to train someone, or what I would even do to train myself to prepare for it. So the 6 events are as follows. We got the strength deadlift, the standing power throw, hand raised push-ups, a 250-meter sprint, drag, and carry, the leg tuck, and the 2-mile run. Still there. So the strength deadlift, based on military.com, says that this is a 3 repetition maximum deadlift to test muscular strength. It mimics movement to safety and effectively lifting and carrying heavy load. Next one, standing power throw. This event involves throwing a 10-pound medicine ball as far as possible over the head to the rear. It measures upper and lower muscular power, balance, and whole body flexibility. Next test is the hand raised push-ups. This event forces the soldier to go all the way to the floor and raise his hands before coming back up again, measuring upper body muscular endurance. Okay. Next up is the 250-meter sprint, drag, and carry. This is 5 different events within one event. A 50-meter sprint, a backwards 50-meter drag of a 90-pound sled, a 50-meter movement, a 50-meter carry of 2 40-pound kettlebells, and a 50-meter sprint. It measures muscular strength, power, speed, and reaction time. Next up is the leg tuck. Soldier hangs perpendicular from the pull-up bar and brings his or her knees up to the elbows and back down again for 1 repetition. It measures muscular strength, endurance, and grip. And lastly, the 2-mile test, or 2-mile run. The ACFT retains the 2-mile run portion of the APFT. The ACFT retains the 2-mile portion of the APFT, which is designed to measure aerobic and muscular endurance. So, that, like I said, that one remains. So let's break those down. First thing you have is your strength deadlift. This is going to be pretty interesting. How I would recommend training for this is, if you've never deadlifted before in your life, just get used to the overall motion of it. It's not an overly difficult lift to do, but you need to do it correctly, or you can like significantly hurt yourself. And it is scaled too, like going through what they have listed here. It is scaled to like your height. Well, not height necessarily, but your weight. And I believe it's going to be scaled based on age too. It's not too much information on it yet. But so how would I train somebody for the strength deadlift? If you're preparing to do it for the first time, just start with a gradual progression. You know, watch videos, educate yourself, and learn just the bar path and proper way to actually do the technique. You don't want to round your back at all, because that's a good way that could lead to severe lumbar issues, which is low back. You really don't want issues like that when training. But start with something light too, just the bar. Even kettlebells is a good way to learn the technique. Dumbbell deadlift. Anything to just get the form down before you start loading up the bar, because it is a 3-rep max, so you don't really need to kill yourself too much. So that'd be the proper progression. And for full details on specific types of numbers and rep ranges, just get in touch via my email, and definitely we can go into further detail. But that's like in the gist of what I would do, is just start with a gradual progression. Kettlebells, dumbbells, barbell work. And then eventually, once you get the motion down, then you can start loading up the bar. But just get used to doing it properly without rounding your back, without letting the bar drift too far out. There's definitely some technique things that I would recommend to start with first. From an injury prevention standpoint, standing power throw. So this one involves a medicine ball throw, where you essentially have it in front of you, and then you throw the ball as high and powerfully as you can over your head, backwards, essentially. To get used to this motion, kettlebell swings would actually be a good thing to do, to actually just get used to exploding through your hips, because this kind of motion is very comparable to an Olympic lift in like the power clean. And the way that I typically train people to do power cleans, you start in a base power position, which is the athletic position. Your toes are slightly canted outward or pointing forward, knees slightly bent. Your hips are just pretty much neutral, but your shoulders are back, your chest is up, your head is up, head forward. So this is your standard athletic position. You see it in basketball, football. You pretty much get set and ready to do whatever you need to do here in this position. The standing power throw, I'm assuming, would start from this position. You'd gather yourself, get the ball, and then you would throw it over your head as hard as you can, fully extending and exploding backwards. So something to get used to doing that is plyometrics, like regular old standing and jumping plyometrics. And then you can add an extension portion to it, where you actually use the ball and toss over your head. That's one thing to do too, as well as the kettlebell swings to just really open up your hips, because that's something that's pretty important in the whole like power throw, the power of the movement itself. Hand raised push-ups. Now, hand raised push-ups, the way that I've seen these, you literally, it's like doing a normal push-up, but you literally go on the ground, release your hands completely, push back up like a normal push-up. I don't think there's an actual rest position per se. I guess it'd be on the ground. There's not really much details on it specifically, but it's really interesting. So I think to train for this, you would honestly just need to, what I did for push-ups is I just did push-ups. That was the only way to get better at them specifically. Now you can lift also to augment and cross train. Keep your rep ranges a little bit on the higher end, or if you just want to make your muscle tissue stronger in general, then you can do rep ranges between 3 to 5 with slightly heavier weight. But with push-ups, since it's so endurance intensive anyway, honestly, you just have to do push-ups. That's the only way to get better at them. It's a pretty specific motion, so the best way to do push-ups is to do push-ups. You could also just strengthen your auxiliary muscles too, like any kind of shoulder work, like forward raises, side raises, things like that would also benefit you too. Bicep, tricep, just smaller muscle groups that would also benefit you in push-ups as well. But definitely the focus should be more so your chest, and just doing push-ups can just make you better by just repping out that type of movement, because that's the basic movement you're going to be doing for this particular portion of the exam. So the next one we have here is the 250 meter sprint, drag, and carry. So this one's interesting because, like they said, it's 5 different parts. So you have your 50-meter sprint, a drag of a 90-pound sled, a 50-meter movement, a 50-meter carry of 40-pound kettlebells, and a final 50-meter movement. Sprint, actually. So this one to train for, I would break down into pieces. Just to improve your overall strength by, so let's start breaking into pieces. Let's start with the 50-meter sprint. To get better at that, I'd recommend, kind of how I mentioned earlier with the fartlek training, just start working in sprints periodically throughout your week. You can go over 50 meters, but definitely get good at doing the minimum. But if you could get to maybe a 100-meter sprint, it could be beneficial, because cumulatively the whole movement pattern is 250 meters. So there is a slight endurance portion to it, very slight, because you're going to be sprinting mostly. But to maintain a certain explosivity over this time frame, it wouldn't hurt to have a very powerful sprint on that very last 50 meters. So in order to get better at that, do longer sprints when you're preparing for the PT test. Does that make sense? So that's how you train for that 50-meter sprint portion just alone. Just work on doing sprints, hill sprints, parachute runs, resistance runs, things like that. Now the drag portion, different things you could do with that. If you're at a local gym, you actually have access to sleds. Just get used to pushing those and get used to pulling those. 90 pounds, I believe that scale just generally to, I guess, whoever the person in this particular test would be, it would be 90 pounds. It probably gets scaled down depending on your overall body size, or scaled up depending on your body size. So just get used to pushing sleds. Another variant that you could do is tire flips, getting used to basically gathering all that body weight and weight in general, and then pushing it forward, going through the motion of that explosive and violent like initial push, I think that would help with sleds pushes and pulls. So tire flips would also be pretty beneficial too. The 50-meter movement and then the 50-meter carry of 40-pound kettlebells. For the 40-pound kettlebells, to train for that, get used to doing something called farmer's carries. And all that is you can use a trap bar, you can use dumbbells, you can use, hell, if you don't have access to weights, honestly, you can use milk jugs and sandbags and milk jugs full of sand. Or just milk, honestly. You have options, or buckets, and you just stand up straight, shoulders back, head up, and just with the tight core, you just walk forward. Try not to swing your arms much because the momentum will throw you off because, the excess weight. So you definitely just want to keep them basically stapled at your sides and just walk. Nice and tall, shoulders back, chest up, head up. And a couple laps of that will probably get you really good at doing the kettlebell walks. You also may want to improve your grip strength because if the order of this is situated is followed by the leg tucks, like they say, your grip is going to be pretty much gassed a little bit after doing this particular portion of the exam. So I would recommend also, after you do your farmer's carries, to superset with wrist curls to basically just get better at grip. Because I know personally I have, just genetically smaller wrists. So I had to do extra grip strength things. And yeah, wrist curls, I actually have videos of wrist curls as well as just some other stuff to help out with the different portions of the exam on the YouTube. So just go ahead and check out TMI Entertainment, youtube.com. You'll find all the videos of different exercises that I've mentioned throughout this to help. And, you'll actually see firsthand how I did it, or my subject was doing it to actually help out with a real visual representation of what you could do. But so wrist curls to superset will help. And the last portion is just a 50-meter straight on sprint. So once again, just practice doing your sprints, practice doing resistance sprints and overspeed training, and do it for more than 50 meters. If you could do hundreds, do hundreds, whatever works for you. But you definitely want to improve your power without hurting yourself, and that'd be one way to do it. So just break every event down and do it, and attack it in pieces. So like I said, the next up is the leg tuck. And the leg tuck is when you're just hanging perpendicular from the bar, not necessarily like a straight on pull up, just kind of canted off to the side. And this is actually there's like a hanging movement drill that the Army really does as one of their training exercise methods. So it's essentially you tuck your knees up to your elbows. And the way I would advise you to prepare for this, especially if you're like bigger, is to just improve your core strength and endurance entirely. So what do I mean by that? Obliques. I mean low back. I mean your serratus, which is like pretty much right next to your ribs. I mean like your low abdomen, like pretty much above your groin, and that under your actual six pack, like your very low abdomen. All of these areas can be hit with different exercises that I actually have, once again, in the YouTube channel, TMI Entertainment, youtube.com. You'll find it. You'll actually see some of the exercises in the core training area. You'll find those. But some of the exercises that I would recommend would be dead bugs, mountain climbers, any kind of low back extension of some sort, oblique sit-ups, bicycle sit-ups, sprinter sit-ups. All of these variants can be seen, but anything to improve your core on a whole. When people think core, they only think, oh, I need to do crunches for my six-pack. Well, that's not your whole core. That's just that particular movement pattern, which is flexion. So you want to mix it up. Clearly earlier in this, you're going to have a standing power throw. So core power matters too. So what can you do is implement that later on into your core training for the leg tuck motion too. So med ball slams would be a power based abdominal movement. Flexion for abdominal would just be regular old crunches. Rotation is anything involving a cable or just side to side rotations, that'd be solid for oblique training. If you want to do extension, any like reverse crunches or things like that would be good for low back. Stability in regards to planks and dynamic kind of planks that you can, where you're basically in a plank motion, but you're tucking your leg out, tucking your leg back in, tucking your arm out, tucking your arm back in. That's a dynamic version of a plank that's also beneficial. Or dynamic core training in general, like your cycles, where you're laying on your back and you're just cycling back and forth, elbows to knees. That's more of a like dynamic / oblique training. So these are the ways you just have to spread out how you actually hit your abs. Don't just do just straight core flexion. Mix it up. Get dynamic. Stand up and move around a bit. And find different variants. Med ball throws while rotating against the wall. Another good one that I used to do. So try it out. All of these will improve your overall core strength and endurance, which should help you with that particular motion of hanging from the bar, because gravity is not going to be on your side when you're hanging from the bar. So the next thing you're going to want to do after leg tuck is your 2-mile run. To train for that 2-mile run, like I said, break it down like how I did. If that worked best for me, you got to find what works best for you. But having a thoroughbred, full-fledged distance day in which you do more than 2 miles is what I'd really recommend. So 2 miles plus, whatever that is for you. To me, the most I ever ran was, I think, about 5 on my training type runs. And then my intermediate fartlek kind of, sprint / interval days would be like 2 minutes on or 3 minutes on, 2 minutes off. Just play with the work to rest ratios. And what that means is for however much time you spend doing the running portion, whatever time is spent doing the rest portion, that represents the ratio. So if you got 3 minutes of run, 1 minute of rest, that'd be 3 to 1 work to rest ratio. Does that make sense? So just play with the numbers, see what works for you. But I recommend you mix it up. So you have an interval day, you have a sprint day, and you have a distance day. That's just my take on it. And that'll prep you for your 2-mile run portion, the test. So that pretty much wraps it up, guys. The new test seems like it's going to be a bit more challenging, but if you prepare the right ways and actually train your body effectively to avoid injury for one, but also to do the different dynamic motions that are going to be within the test itself, training for strength, endurance, core stability, grip strength, all these minor things you really didn't have to worry about in the initial PT test that you're going to have to worry about in the Army Combat Fitness test, it can all be taken care of in your training. And a lot of the things that I said that would help in your training can be seen on the YouTube channel, TMI Entertainment. Look it up on YouTube. You'll find tons of the videos because some of the stuff that I mentioned is already on there. So if the information I provided has been helpful, funny, feel free to drop a like, comment, subscribe, and share. Follow me on Facebook. And definitely leave a question below to be answered in the next podcast, or send your questions and inquiries about internet coaching sessions or exercise plans to the email on the screen, tmientertainment365@gmail.com. And, we'll see if I can help you out. But, hey, what do I know? I'm just trying to make it. See you guys next time.